Welcome to the Deep Cut.
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the Deep Cut. We'll be taking a look at some of the biggest cards in all of MMA, not just UFC. Different large promotions and looking at their pay-per-views or their big cards that are worthy of mentioning. Some of these lesser known talents that are going to help build the card and set the foundation. And I'm going to be highlighting a lot of these fighters that aren't in the headlines, at least not yet. The fights that usually interest me aren't necessarily the big name fights, the fighters that are at the top. I really do enjoy watching the rise for these fighters and seeing them before they become a household name. And then that way I can say, I was a fan of them before it was cool. Blah. Right? I enjoy having that kind of insight to, I knew who this person was before they became popular. And, that way if you follow along with me on the show as we kind of continue, you can say the same thing, just in a way that's way cooler than I just did. So enough with the dilly-dally. Let's get moving on into it. And this week we're going to go deep into UFC 284. Now, we have a main event here of Islam Makhachev and Alexander Volkanovski. That's a meeting of two champions in different weight divisions. We've seen this become popular with Conor McGregor, who's also going to be coaching for The Ultimate Fighter, which is exciting to see him make his return as well. But we're seeing a interdivisional championship match to come out with a champ status. Volkanovski's trying to move up to lightweight. And then on the co-main event, you do have Josh Emmett and Yair Rodriguez fighting for the interim championship. In the event that Volkanovski moves up and, if he successfully takes the championship from Makhachev or decides to return back to his division, either way, there'll be an interim championship waiting or somebody else to kind of step in and take over. But we'll take a look at the card in a brief overview here because I don't want to spend too much time talking about the main event and the co-main event because, like I was saying, the whole point of this is to showcase some of the fighters that people may not know about yet. And that's what I'm really excited to do and show everyone here. So obviously we have the main event and the co-main event to start. And really it's a really well filled out card. Jack Della Maddalena in that Coco main event, that third slot. He's relatively new into the UFC, but has already made a big name for himself coming from Contender Series. Already a really big name and really a short time in the UFC. But we'll take a look at some of these other fights as we go along too. And I'm not sure how many people you're all going to be familiar with, but I'm just looking at the matchups here from Tapology. I think it's a good card for sure to start. Really excited to see some of these guys make a name for themselves and come in and start where just a little while ago they were in the regional scenes and they weren't necessarily getting quite as much attention as they could be and should be. So I'll move into the first fight that I'm going to feature here. Is going to be Kleaton Rodriguez and Shannon Ross. So some people may remember Shannon Ross in his UFC start here with Contender Series. He's a solid fighter, but he didn't have a great showing in his Contender Series debut. He lost his fight, here as well, which obviously isn't usually how you get a contract on Contender Series. But after the fight was over, Dana White gave out all the contracts for the night. He got a call and was told that he got a contract after he was already gone and left the facility. So in this fight, Shannon Ross got dropped really, really bad a couple of times in the first round and in the second round, where eventually he did get knocked out, unfortunately for him. But he was facing a guy, his name is Vinicius Salvador, fighting out of Brazil. Finished every single fight in his career. Every single fight Vinicius Salvador has finished. So why are we not talking about him? well, he's not on this card, one. But Shannon had an incredible fight after being hurt a number of times. He never stopped fighting, got dropped, got back up, and started swinging again. And even hurt his opponent a couple of times bad, where it looked like he might have a chance to finish. But he just showed an incredible amount of toughness, an incredible amount of heart, and just would not go away until, he did get hit and got dropped pretty hard by a couple punch combinations in the second round after he'd taken an incredible amount of damage already. But what makes this so impressive is that he actually had appendicitis.
Bruh.
He found that out after the fight. He said that he woke up that day with abdominal pain, but he had an emergency surgery to remove his appendix, and he had it during the fight. And he still didn't quit and had an incredible performance. And the funny part is that he actually was getting his appendix removed. He was having an emergency surgery, and they were trying to call him to tell him that he won a contract while he was in surgery. So he got out of surgery, got his appendix removed, and then found out, hey, I have a contract? What? No way. That's awesome. Imagine losing your fight, finding out you have appendicitis, going into surgery, and then finding out once you come out that, hey, you got a contract, you had a good job interview. kind of a happy story and something to root along for. And he's definitely a talented fighter, and we'll see exactly what he can bring to the table because he was impressive in this last showing. I'm really excited to have him on a big card. And he's facing Kleaton Rodriguez, who is also a Contender Series veteran. This guy's a problem. Kleaton Rodriguez is going to cause major waves in this division. The dude is a fantastic fighter. He's good everywhere. Doesn't usually showcase his grappling prowess, but he's got the skills to hang with anybody in the UFC in this division. His debut was a split decision loss against CJ Vergara, again, another Contender Series opponent. That was a really close back and forth fight, and Vergara is a solid, legitimate prospect in this division too. I have to watch the fight back again to see who I think really won the fight, but I remember it being really close and not being able to tell who really pulled away in one way or the other. But Kleaton Rodriguez, that's a name that you'll be remembering as well for the future. These two are going to come together. They're going to put on an incredible performance. They're going to stand. They're going to throw strikes. And just be wary. This is a 50K bonus type of fight. And it's early in the card as well. Next fight that I'm going to showcase here is Blake Bilder. He's a former champion from CFFC, homegrown talent. He's undefeated. His only blemish, he's 7-0-1. He had a split decision draw. So one ref thought that he won the fight, another ref thought that the other guy won the fight, and then there was the ref that thought it was a draw.
Aww.
He's finished a couple people, including his Contender Series fight where he faced Alex Morgan. A couple notes on Bilder is that his opponent's combined record is 39-26-1, with obviously that one being the draw against him. So he's got some competition against experienced opponents, solid competitions. He's got power in his hands. He's strong with his strikes. He still looks a little bit like he needs some fine tuning, as everybody progresses as they go. But he's definitely got a strong grappling base. He's got some really good power in his hands, but he just isn't quite fluid and smooth with it yet. And we'll see how much he's come from that Contender Series fight. He's got a really smooth back take, and his arm goes right under the neck as he takes your back, leaves you no chance. So that's something that Shane Young, his opponent, will have to do, is be wary of that. If he gets his back taken, it's a bad spot because Blake Bilder loves to take the back and gets his neck, it gets his arm right underneath the chin really quickly, and that's how he won his Contender Series fight. Now, Shane Young is 2-3 in the UFC. He's pictured here on the right. You can see him with the red tape on his gloves. He's on a 2-fight skid right now, and he might be fighting for a roster spot. Being 2-3 on a 2-fight losing streak doesn't usually bode well for somebody in their career if you lose another one. But this is his 4th pay-per-view in a row. So they've got some faith and belief in this kid. He's got some talent. He's really tough. He eats too many shots, but he invites you in so he can land a shot. He's willing to take one to land one. But he's really strong technically all around. He's probably got a slight striking advantage against Blake Builder. It's going to be really close because both these guys are going to get in and they're going to throw hands with each other. I would expect Builder to try and look for a submission, try to take him down and take the easiest path of least resistance. A quick little interesting tidbit is Shane Young from Australia. Usually everyone thinks, oh, you're trained with Volkanovski. Well, yes, he does, but he didn't before. He actually fought Volkanovski in his UFC debut and lost to Volkanovski. So he's got the chops to hang. And then after that fight, he started to switch things over and actually started to train with Volkanovski. So fun little switch of sides there. But the guy's got talent and he can hang with the best in the division. He's shown that, and we'll see, because he doesn't deserve to be cut. Even if he loses this fight, this kid's got talent. He deserves to be in the UFC. He's skilled. But for his sake, I'm hoping that he can come out with a win to help strengthen his case to extend his contract and stay longer. I don't know if he's up for negotiation or whatnot at this point, but 3-3 looks a lot better than 2-4 in the UFC. So the third fight that I have to get into today is going to be Jack Jenkins and Don Shainis. Jack Jenkins pictured here, a solid prospect, really solid prospect. His combined opponents record, where I was just talking about builders, Jenkins' combined opponent's record is 56-39-1. So again, his last loss was in 2018. All right, he's on a 7-fight win streak. Really high level striker, great leg kicks. And if you watch the Contender Series fight, you'll hear Laura Sanko rave about Jack Jenkins and his leg kicks. And what does he do to start the fight? Is he takes him down, grounds and pounds this guy for 3 rounds. And his fight IQ is just so high. He takes wonderful shots, goes right into the takedowns, perfectly times them. And then ground and pound is nasty. Really grinds on his opponents, throws elbows. He cut his opponent really, really bad in his Contender Series fight. He cut him really bad. There was blood all over the place. Just those short elbows cut right away and continued to just dominate, and ended up getting a finish at the very end of round 3 in this Contender Series fight. The guy that he was facing was 8-1. So 2 solid prospects coming up, and he found a way to get the win. Now he's making some waves coming into the UFC against Don Shainis, which I have to give a little bit of extra shout out for, because he's a Massachusetts guy, East Coast. He's got an interesting story because he's actually been a triple champ. You can fact check me on that, but I believe that he was a triple champ on Cage Titans, and he finished everybody in the first round. So many finishes with KOs, another KO, another one that's under a minute. Now, he's a talented fighter. He's really good. I like Don Shainis a lot. He actually already fought in his UFC debut. He fought on another pay-per-view. He came up against Sadiq Yusuff. Sadiq Yusuff is a killer. So to give somebody a debut in that, he shows that they have confidence in this guy. Probably wasn't the best match to book. That was a really, really big step up in competition. Like I said, Sadiq Yusuff is a killer. Dude is fantastic in MMA and is probably a champion in the not too distant future. Shainis got caught in a guillotine and the fight was over in under a minute. But him and Sadiq Yusuff were in the clinch, throwing strikes at each other, and just kind of got caught. Get the jitters. UFC debut against a ranked opponent. Sadiq Yusuff was ranked number 12 at the time. I think that this is going to be his real UFC debut. He's going to face off against Jack Jenkins, like I was saying, another Contender Series guy. Don Shainis never got a chance to fight on Contender Series. He just made the jump. Maybe this is his real Contender Series fight. essentially. He's already in the UFC, he's got a contract, but this is a more level competition for him to be facing, even though he's a triple champ. Excited for the East Coaster. I'm rooting for him as always. Gotta root for the guys on the East Coast. Now that we've talked about a few fights, I do want to take some time and just go over another segment here and talk about a couple of fighters that are actually making their UFC debut on this pay-per-view. A lot of the pay-per-view debuts, sometimes they come on short notice, which is the case for both of the fighters that I want to talk, making their debut on short notice, which is high risk, high reward. It's a big gamble. Sometimes it pays off, sometimes it goes the other way for you and you start off with a loss in your UFC career. But the first fight of the night is Elvis Brenner making his UFC debut on short notice. He's replacing Joel Alvarez, and he's going to be fighting Zubaira Tukhugov, who actually Tukhugov has a number of fight cancellations already on his sheet here. So here comes Elvis Brenner to fill in, and on short notice comes in to make the fight happen. Now, he's a young kid. Brenner's 25 years old. He's on a 2-fight win streak with 2 first-round submissions in a row, which he's plenty used to. There's a lot of submissions on his record. He's a submission ace, to say the very least. He's 13-3, and he makes the jump up in competition straight to the UFC. Watch your limbs with this guy. And Tukhugov, being a Russian fighter, he may have the interest of grappling, but it'll probably serve him wise to avoid going to the mat with a submission ace. Training at a shoot box in Diego Lima's camp in Brazil. Going to be ready for the challenge for sure. Definitely a big step up in competition, but we'll see if he's ready. Hopefully, always rooting for the young guy to make the jump up. And then the next fight is Francisco Prado. He's also making his debut on short notice. He's going to be replacing an injured Nasrat Haqparast as he steps in to fight Jamie Malarkey, who's a seasoned vet in the UFC, right? But Prado is 11-0. He's an undefeated fighter. 20 years old, so young prospect coming straight up from Argentina. He's a champion in their promotion, and again, lots of submissions. He's got a couple of knockouts sprinkled in there as well, but again, a very well-rounded fighter that likes to finish fights. You can understand why they're giving him the call up. But on short notice, again, high risk, high reward. And Jamie Malarkey's a veteran in the UFC. He's been in for a while. I believe he's 2-3 in the UFC or something along those lines, or 3-3. So both these guys are getting short notice calls against seasoned veterans, and hopefully it goes well for them. Let me know if there's any fighters that you think should get some attention, or if you think that I missed somebody. Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. And always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Peace.